Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Melissa.
And my name is Tracy, and we are so glad you're joining us for today's episode. Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Ginger Darval, a retired nurse and boomerang third culture kid who spent her growing up years in Ecuador, returned to the U.S., and then went abroad again after she was married, hence the boomerang. In this episode, Ginger tells us stories from when she returned to Chicago for college and how, even though she was beginning a new life, her previous life sent connections and built-in support in those college years. And now, more than 50 years later, she shares how she remains connected to the place where she grew up. So, buckle your seatbelts and make sure your tray tables and seats are in their upright positions as part 2 of Ginger's round trip story gets ready for takeoff. We are back for part 2 of our Round Trip Stories podcast interview with Ginger Darval. She is a former nurse and grandmother and mother and all the things. And we're so grateful that she is here with us talking about her TCK life, but also she's going to talk about her return from Ecuador. So thanks again for being here.
You're welcome.
Just in case anybody is just joining us and didn't hear the first half of Ginger's interview, this is actually part 2 of a 4-part series because we are sharing 2 episodes like normal of Ginger, but then we are going to continue with 2 episodes where we interview her husband, Dave. So this is kind of a special 4-part family series, which we haven't done before. So this is fun. So to start, we just want to talk about your repatriation backstory. Please remind the audience where you lived abroad and how long you were there.
So I lived in Quito, Ecuador from the time I was 5 years old, with the exception of 2 furloughs in between. And then we came back to the States just after I graduated from high school.
Okay. And where in the States did you land? And what did you do at that point?
My parents were from southern Wisconsin. And so we went to Racine, Wisconsin. And then I started college in the fall in Chicago.
So, Ginger, right now we are wanting to hear some stories about your initial returning to the U.S. when you went back for college. Tell us a story about that initial transition.
So when we came back, actually, my sister and I just flew up by ourselves because my parents needed to work a little bit longer, but I needed to get a job in the States to earn some money for college. So we went to Racine and stayed with my grandparents. And my grandmother had been able to get me a job at a nursing home that was just down the street because she knew the director of nursing. So I was able to work there during the summer. And then after about 6 weeks, I think my parents came back, including my brother. So we were all there together. And I worked that summer. And then they got a second story apartment just down the street from my grandma and grandpa where they stayed for that furlough year. But then in August, then I went to Chicago to start school at North Park University.
So your parents came back and stayed a furlough year while you did your freshman year?
Yes, which was really nice because I was able to see them sometimes, on the weekend, and they were there for the holidays and stuff. So that really helped my transition because then at the end of that year, they left. And then, I didn't have direct family right there close to me. So I was grateful they were there for that first year.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what it was like, going to college there.
North Park is right in Chicago on the north side, but I had never been to the campus before. I didn't take a
Mm,
trip there before I went there. So I think I just didn't really know what to expect. It
yeah.
was right in the neighborhood, and you sort of had to know where the boundaries, stopped and started. And Chicago was very busy, lots of traffic and busy streets. I had 2 roommates my first year and, enjoyed, meeting all the other students, but I had to study really hard. I was kind of afraid that I might not pass some of my classes, but I did. But, yeah, it was kinda stressful and then just making all the adjustments, and I did remember what a hard time I had in 8th grade, and I told myself, "Okay, you just have to try to talk to people and be friendly and not be so shy and,
Mm,
just to get in with people because this is a whole new experience." I
mhm.
was very fortunate in that I had 2 classmates. They were boys, but they were still classmates. Well, and actually a girl that had left Ecuador before, but I had known her when she was younger. They all went to North Park, so at least I knew somebody. And
Mhm.
then 2 of my cousins whose parents had been missionaries in Japan, they were also going to North Park. And then as it turned out, my aunt and uncle were living in Chicago real close to the university also, so they were there too, so that was helpful for me, so it wasn't like I had nobody.
Yeah. That is really helpful.
Yes, somebody who knew you in Ecuador and now they were getting to know you in Chicago, those classmates.
Right. Right.
And then family members. I think there's something kind of, I don't know, grounding is the word that I think of that just helps you not feel quite so lost and disconnected or disoriented when you know that there's somebody around that knows you, that you can, get in touch with if you need help.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because 'cause I've heard of kids who just got dropped off and, that was kind of it, sink or swim, but I
Yeah.
did have a support system, so God was good in
Yeah.
giving me that.
Yeah. That is good. Is there anything you wanna tell us about what was hard about that transition of moving back to the States after growing up in Ecuador?
Well, it was just kind of a whole different world and kind of the start of a new life and adulting, as we say today.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and knowing pretty much that I was on my own and had to be independent and make my own way, I didn't see going home to my parents as really being an option because they were either in
Yeah.
Wisconsin or they had gone to Panama, and so, yeah, so I was on my own that way, um,
Hmm,
but I do think kids tended to be more independent back in that
Mhm.
day, and so it was a little difficult, but I had people that I could ask questions and kind of find my way, so
Mhm.
it wasn't too bad, and it was a small Christian college, but it was, the school of the Covenant Church, which
Mm.
I wasn't a member with, but I knew well, in fact, the 3 kids that I already knew there, they were, of the Covenant denomination, so it wasn't that different for me.
Yeah.
But a lot of these kids knew each other, and then some of the kids were from Chicago and, lived at home, but I lived in the dorm, which had its good and bad points, but mostly good.
Yeah, it's so different now than it was then. So what year that would have been
That
in
was
the
'68. Well, I graduated in
okay.
'68, so, yeah, so fall of '68 was when I started my freshman year.
Yeah. Yeah. You were saying before, you don't just pick up the phone and make a phone call because even long distance phone calls were expensive.
Right. Right.
And whereas nowadays, my daughter went away to college after she graduated from high school to up to Oregon, which, it's not on a different continent. Either way, we could, text each other pictures and we could FaceTime and so many things that we can do now to stay in touch that it was so different
Yes,
back
yes.
then.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's there are good things and hard things about that. It's not automatically that it's better now. It's just different.
One of the um, positives about your life circumstances is that you mentioned that you've had a lot of support from your family. You got to live with your family while you went to the boarding school, but you got to live with your family, and that was a system of support. And then even when you moved back and you didn't have your parents anymore, there was still that system of support.
Mhm.
Um, and that's so important to have those systems in place for us to be able to launch or have healthy relationships or just adult, as you said.
Yeah, yeah, and just having that security that know that there's somebody you can talk to or rely on if you
Mm.
get in big trouble.
Yep, true. Is there anything else that you want to add about what was helpful for you during that transition? Or
Yeah. So the first year, I had my parents in Wisconsin. They were kind of close, and my aunt and uncle were a couple blocks away. And since they had been missionaries, I felt like they got it, and their kids and I were kind of on the same wavelength too because they were missionary kids. So even though I didn't know them all that well, we related easily. My aunt invited myself and a friend over to eat for Sunday dinner because they didn't serve that in the cafeteria. So she said, anytime you want to come over for dinner, just come and, bring a friend, whoever you want. And so that was always an open invitation and very nice to have, especially if I was low on money and couldn't afford to go and eat out on a Sunday night.
Mhm.
Um, and oh, yes, and then the summer after my freshman year, by then my parents were gone, and my aunt kindly invited me to come and stay with them for the summer. So that was really nice of them to do that. And I could have stayed in the dorm where a few of the girls did, but it just seemed so kind of lonely to live in the
Yeah.
dorm over the summer
Yes,
when nobody hardly was
I
there.
agree.
And then the other summers, um, me and my friends, and one summer my sister, I think, we were able to sublet apartments. And so that was kind of fun. And that's when we really felt like we were on our own because we all had um, jobs. We didn't have cars, but we could walk or take the bus, and we had to cook for ourselves and all that. So we felt like we were quite independent. And yeah, and mostly I worked at the hospital, one of the ones that we went to for our nursing hours. And so I kind of,
Yeah.
enjoyed working there as a nurse's aide. So, yeah.
You had a lot of professional experience, even in Ecuador, and then it carried over to the US.
Yes.
I was also thinking about your comment about it was nice to live with a family. It was a little bit lonely in the summer
Mhm.
living in the dorms, and I think when I've moved out when I was 18, I went to university in another city, and I was in the dorms, but then when I moved to Mexico for grad school, I started out with living with a family. And even though I had the independent experience of living in the dorms, it was really nice to live with a family because there's just that warmth and the wisdom and the protection living with a family, even if it's not yours, that provides.
Mhm.
Then I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to live out my own again. But then I moved back with a family, another family in Mexico, because I was ready to live with another family again. Like my grandfather had passed away. I think I was just feeling really sad and lonely, because he passed away while I was in the United States, but then I left right after that. And so just kind of mourning the loss of my grandfather. And so living with a family provided comfort.
So, the last question that I'm going to ask you before Tracy gets to the conclusion questions is what we like to think of as our choose your own adventure questions. So, you get to pick one of these questions to answer. So, the first one is, what rhythms do you have in place which allow you to remember your time abroad? Second, what do you do with all the feels, memories, relationships, love for the place and people, etc.? Or third, do you have a favorite funny story about your time abroad or transition back? So, which of those questions do you want to answer?
Probably the all the feels. Yeah. Well, I definitely feel like I have a special place in my heart for Ecuador and the culture and the people. I think it was a great time and place for me to grow up, and I can't imagine having a different life. I do keep in touch with a lot of friends from school. My class has had a lot of reunions all over the US. One time we did go back
Hmm.
to Ecuador, but
Wow.
mostly we just pick a pick a city that sounds good, or maybe one of us lives there, and then we just go there. So that's kind of fun also. And then we've also had other reunions with families from Ecuador that we've known. So, like, other mostly missionary families, but who say maybe had, younger kids, but maybe I knew them because they were friends of my brother or sister,
Mhm, mhm.
and so we've had a few of those in California, and then we also have a Facebook group that, I guess it's been a few
Hmm.
years now, but somebody had the idea to start one. So we have a Facebook group that we have over 1,000 members, and people post like old pictures or new pictures, or there's a few people that are still down there and they'll post something that, might be happening today or things that are in the news about Ecuador. So it's fun to keep up that way. So I think all that keeps me, I don't know, in touch. And I did the last time I went back was in 2004, um, but I had gone back a few times before that, but it was so different in 2004, and then I've seen pictures now of it since then, and everything has changed so
Mm,
much. I really am not sure that I, even wanna go back, but if the opportunity
yeah.
presented itself, I might.
Yeah. Um, Sometimes going back and seeing places and experiencing certain things can be really a joyful thing, but when things have changed so much that it doesn't even feel at all the same, then yeah, maybe at that point we just relish the memories and not so much try to touch them physically.
All right, Ginger, tell us a final story about how your time abroad continues to add to your life today and has throughout your life.
Yeah. Well, I think it affected my nursing career. Well, partly in that I was even interested in nursing, I think because my parents worked at the hospital and there were a lot of missionary nurses who lived there. And the ones from Canada had navy blue capes with red linings, which I loved their nursing capes. And I never got to wear one, but I did love those.
Ah,
A lot of times I have come in contact with Spanish speaking patients, so I've been able to use my Spanish with them. And then, especially when I worked at the free clinic at the Poverello House, we had a big Hispanic population that would come there. So I got to use my Spanish
mhm.
almost every day. And then also, like, having compassion for people and
Yeah.
understanding their um, culture more.
Mhm. I did want to ask about how how your growing up living abroad ended up leading to you going back abroad.
Right.
And even picking your life partner of 50 years.
So I moved to San Diego after I finished college. And I was in a singles group. And through mutual friends, ended up meeting Dave because these friends knew that he had spent a summer in Ecuador. It was after I
Mhm.
was gone, so I didn't ever meet him down there, but not all that many people in San Diego had been to Ecuador, so I was excited
True.
to meet him, and he was excited to meet me, and my friend was living with me at the time who was also from Ecuador. But so, yeah, so we met and got to know each other and then eventually got married. Dave was going to school. He already had his private pilot's license, but he needed to get more hours because at that time he was interested in becoming a pilot for Mission Aviation Fellowship, which he heard of through me because they were in Ecuador and we used to fly to the jungle sometimes on their planes.
Mhm.
Um, So he needed to make some money to get some further training and all. And this opportunity at the school he was going to came about, and they were looking for people to go to Saudi Arabia to work for Saudia, the national airline over there, and teach the young Saudi boys kind of pre aviation and math. So he talked to me about the opportunity, and it was a 2-year commitment, and I thought it sounded just, fine, sure, I'm up for that. And some people questioned, "Well, how would you wanna move to another country and everything, and aren't you scared?" I'm like, "Well, no, why should I be scared?" I've already lived in another country, so to me, it
Mhm.
was no big deal. So we did that for 2 years, and then we ended up, going out with MAF. We went to Costa Rica for further language school and then went to Colombia. And um, we had 3 kids along the way. So Jenny was born in Chicago because we had gone back there for a year. Then when we went to Saudi Arabia, our son Matt was born. And then when we were in Costa Rica, our son Steve was born. So 3 kids from 3 countries.
And that's your TCK boomerang. You came back to the States and then you went back out again.
Yep, yep. One other comment that I would like to make,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty sure I even heard on one of the other podcasts, is the book Third Culture Kids,
Mhm.
which I got that years ago. I think it came out in 2001. It's an excellent book. and it was recommended to me, and I think I just ate it up when I got it because it's like, "Oh, yes, this is me," and, these are a lot of my feelings and experiences, and,
Mhm.
some other people can understand that. Very, very helpful information
Mhm.
and in helping me, kinda understand myself and my life experience and where I fit into the scheme of things.
Yeah.
So, how old were you when you read that book, would you say?
So maybe 50-ish?
Okay. And I love that we can always learn about ourselves.
Right. And I was looking at it today and just thinking, I should read this again.
Yeah, because the experiences that we have, they never stop affecting. I mean, it the effect of it, the impact of certain things might diminish over time, but there are certain things that are foundational enough and core enough to who we are that it maybe it changes over time, but it doesn't go away. And so it can be good to revisit, how is it affecting this stage of my life?
Yes, yes, because I think you see things from different perspectives depending on how old you are.
Mhm, and how
And
old your kids
yes,
are, and
yes, yes. So yeah,
yeah.
and interesting at our reunions, the different topics that we would kind of talk about and felt the need to talk about at certain
Yes.
ages. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, now we're seeing it this way. Now we've moved on to this or that, and we're kind of done with that other thing.
And would you say that a lot of your friends that you have stayed connected with throughout the years, that a lot of them also moved, did kind of the boomerang thing that we were talking about and ended up moving to other places for periods of time?
A number of them did, or
Yep.
some of them joined the military and were in different places. Some of them had jobs in other countries or became
Mhm.
missionaries in other countries. So, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely, because I think you get that kind of travel bug or something.
Well, and kind of like you said, you think you're more open to moving to different places because you've done it and it doesn't scare you as much. Now, it doesn't mean that it's gonna be easy.
And I would say all my experiences in the 4 different countries, they've all been very different just because
Mhm.
of the setup of the situation, what we were doing there, how old the kids were, or if I was a kid or I had my kids or all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes it very different.
Well, what's one last word of encouragement that you can give to our listeners?
Think I would say everything wasn't always roses, just like anybody's life, but I feel like my life was so enriched by living overseas and seeing and learning so many things. And I would just encourage people if they have the opportunity to do it and then just try to immerse yourself in it, to learn what you can, and then when you come back to be able to share that experience and support other people who maybe they're having problems or they have questions and that kind of thing. So I would just say I can't imagine my life being any different, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Mhm. Thanks so much. This has been a fun
All right.
conversation,
All right.
and I'm looking forward to getting to hear and chat with your husband, Dave, about his side of the story and his experiences, then
Right.
kind of taking the baton from where
Yes.
you're leaving us off.
Yes.
And yeah, just
Yes.
thank you so much for this
Well,
time.
thanks for having me.
As we land this interview, we hope that you have been inspired by Ginger's return stories to the United States. She continued to expand on all that she learned in Ecuador during her nursing training in college, even though there were times when she was unsure if she was going to pass. Pass she did, and her career took her across the country into the arms of her future husband and then abroad once again. Even when Ginger returned to the U.S. for the second time in the 80s, she continued to use nursing and her Spanish language skills to serve and support her new community in California. Ginger encourages us to take whatever opportunities we've had abroad to serve our people wherever going home may take us. No matter what leg of the journey you're on, friends, we are so grateful you have brought us along with you.
Come back next time to hear from Dave Darval, Ginger's husband, who will pick up the story where Ginger left off. Once this pilot met Ginger, their adventures abroad really took flight. You won't want to miss Dave's stories about Colombia and beyond.
If you're enjoying our podcast, we'd love it if you would leave us a review in your podcast app. And don't forget, you can visit our website at roundtripstories.com to see photos of our guests and to join our email list. And of course, tell your friends to travel the world with us. No passport, no packing, and no goodbyes required. Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.